Buddhism by Brooke, Erica, Jake, and Jeremy. From a Buddhist perspective, happiness and joy do not depend on outer conditions, which change constantly, but on the experiencer of all phenomena, the mind itself. By Lama O. Nadal.
How was Buddhism created? Buddhism is a spiritual tradition and a way of life that originated in Sri Lanka in the 3rd century BCE. Buddhism then spread to Southeast Asia. The founder of Buddhism was the Hindu prince Buddha Siddhartha. Around 2,500 years ago, Buddha lived and taught for many years in India. Buddhism wasn't created by Buddha to be a religion. For him, it was just a way of life, and people followed the path he revealed for them. The goal of this path was to achieve a state of utter happiness.
The Buddhism timeline. According to CNN News in 2017, Buddhism was created between 563 and 483 BC, when Buddha lived in India. In 150 AD, trade brought the people of India and their beliefs to Asia. During the 3rd century, teachings of Buddha were translated to Chinese. In the 4th century, it was introduced to Korea, and in the 5th century, it was introduced to Japan. In 1100 and 1200, Muslims dominated in India, and Buddhism became a very minor religion. In the 1800s, Buddhism was introduced to the United States. In 1959, the Dalai Lama fled to India to escape Chinese rules. Currently, Buddhism remains a minor religion and is thought of as more of a philosophy. There are about 8 million followers in India and 360 million followers worldwide.
What is it? The ultimate goal of those who practice Buddhism is to achieve nirvana. Achieving nirvana means ridding oneself of greed and hatred. Nirvana leads a person to live in a state of lasting and unconditional happiness, known as enlightenment. Enlightenment for Buddhists is when one finds the truth about life and reincarnation stops. Reincarnation in Buddhism is the rebirth of a person leading to a new life after having previously passed away. Reincarnation continues throughout one's life until one has found nirvana and reaches the middle way.
What are Buddhism's beliefs? The basic beliefs of Buddhism is the principles of rebirth and karma. The teachings of Buddhism have a step-by-step path that leads to lasting happiness. By following this path, anyone can change their minds from the current confused and selfish state into the state of becoming a Buddha. Geshe Kelsang states, every living being has the potential to become a Buddha, someone who has completely purified his or her mind of all faults and limitations, and has brought all good qualities to perfection.
The Buddha believed in the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are a plan for a way of dealing with human suffering. The Four Noble Truths are simply 1. What is suffering? 2. The cause of suffering. 3. The way to end suffering. And 4. The path one takes for ending suffering. To live means to experience suffering, whether that be physical or mental suffering. Some examples include old age, sickness, and death. The wants, desires, ignorance, and hatred among human beings is what causes suffering throughout life. In order to end suffering, one must learn to control their desires and achieve nirvana. Another way to end suffering is for an individual to rid themselves of attachment as well as their high expectations about life. The path for ending suffering is called the Eightfold Path or the Middle Way. The following slide describes the principles of the Eightfold Path.
The main principles of the Eightfold Path. Right understanding, dysfunctional myths, law of karma, rebirth, and indecision. Right intentions. There are 2 intentions, compassion as a way of life and thinking of others before yourself. Right speech. There are 3 rights of speech. Tell no lies, speak no gossip, and avoid rude and disgraceful language. Right action. There are 4 right actions. Cherish life and don't kill anything. Be a giver, refrain from unwholesome sex, and refrain from intoxicants. Right work. There are 4 rights of work. Work helpfully for others and then oneself. Don't be friends with vanity and pride, and make money for necessities. And do what needs to be done. Right effort. There are 4 rights of effort. Speak spiritual understandings that maternal. Give things away. Meditate in the morning and evening, and give up clinging. Right mindfulness. Ask yourself what you are doing and why you are doing it. Live in the present and let go of your thoughts. Right concentration. Learn from your mistakes, plan lightly, and pay attention to today.
The 5 precepts of Buddhism. The 5 precepts are basic ethical guidelines for the followers of Buddhism. Unlike the commandments from Christianity, these guidelines are taken voluntarily. These precepts are for forming harmony and reducing suffering between others and ourselves. The precepts show two qualities: compassion, also known as karuna, and loving kindness, or the metta. The precepts are: 1. I undertake the precept to refrain from destroying living creatures. 2. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. 3. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct. 4. I undertake the precept to refrain from incorrect speech. And 5. I undertake the precept to refrain from intoxicants.
So how does Buddhism function? The way to happiness is to forbid certain aspects of life, which include no harming to living beings, no stealing, no sexual immorality, no alcohol or recreational drugs, no solid foods after the midday, no frivolous amusements, this means not getting amused by little silly things, no body adornment, which means not to decorate, assuming this means tattoos and piercings, and avoid money pursuits.
Is Buddhism a religion? Those who practice Buddhism are believed to be atheistic. This means that they do not depend on a God because God is not needed. Atheistic differs from atheism in that atheists do not believe that any God exists at all, while those who are atheistic do not deny that there is a God. These individuals may believe that God does or does not exist, but they do not believe that he is necessarily needed. Buddhism doesn't technically fit into the definitions of a religion. Instead of believing the Buddhism teachings through faith, people should examine Buddhism for themselves to see if they are true or not. Because Buddhism focuses on mindfulness and meditation, it is more of a philosophy of life rather than a religion.
How is Buddhism practiced? Many people who practice Buddhism practice meditation, aim at reaching nirvana and the Eightfold Path, and believe in karma determining reincarnation. While there are many people who practice Buddhism, there are 3 different sects that slightly differ in how they practice. Even though they are slightly different, each sect follows the same path and abides with the same tenets. The 3 sects include Theravada, the Mahayana, and Vajrayana.
The first sect of Buddhism is Theravada. The name Theravada translates to Doctrine of the Elders and focuses its teachings off the Pali scriptures which are taught by the Buddha. Theravada is the most ancient sect of Buddhism, and it's dominant in the Southeast Asian schools such as Thailand, Sri Lanka, Burma, Cambodia, and Laos. By studying ancient texts, meditating, and following the Eightfold Path, Theravada Buddhists believe they will achieve enlightenment. Enlightenment is the state of knowledge and wisdom combined with passion. Knowledge refers to the understanding of the mind and the eternal world.
Mahayana Buddhism. The Mahayana tradition is the largest of the 3 traditions that exist today. Mahayana Buddhism is prevalent in China, Japan, Taiwan, Korea, Singapore, and Vietnam. Mahayana Buddhism developed after Theravada and about 500 years after Buddha attained enlightenment. Zen Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism, and Tantric Buddhism all follow under this specific tradition. The focus of Mahayana is compassion in order to save others from suffering.
The last of the 3 Buddhism sects is Vajrayana, which is also the smallest sect of the 3. Vajrayana Buddhism is prevalent in Tibet, Nepal, Mongolia, Bhutan, and parts of Russia and northern India. Even though it is small, it provides a quicker path to enlightenment than the Theravada and Mahayana schools. The teachings of Vajrayana focus on spirit, rituals, and chanting techniques. This sect, along with the first 2, are a way of understanding life and a way to attain enlightenment.
Meditation. Meditation is a practice that allows oneself to separate from their thoughts. It aids in the removal of negative impressions and allows for more space in our minds. Clearing one's minds of distraction allows for a better understanding of life in general and provides a way for happiness to be attained. While meditating, the purpose is not to be in a hypnotic state, but to simply be in a state of awareness. Chasyan Dasamaru once said, "Meditation is like water in a glass. Leave the water sit quietly, and soon the dirt will sink down." He said this because when you meditate, all your thoughts sink down just like dirt in a glass.
Karma and reincarnation. Buddhists believe in karma, which refers to an individual's good or bad actions that they take during their life. These actions play a part in determining one's fate at the end of their life. Good actions include being generous, meditating, and being a righteous human being, which in turn leads to happiness. These actions often have benefits for believers of Buddhism, while bad actions have consequences. Bad actions can range from lying to stealing or killing someone, all of which lead to unhappiness. These actions are determined by how frequent one acts, repetition of the act, whether the act was intentional or accidental, and whether or not the individual regrets the action committed. Another type of karma is referred to as neutral karma, which includes breathing, sleeping, and eating. None of these actions have benefits or consequences.
Karma and one's actions plays an important role in determining the rebirth of an individual. Individuals can be reborn into 3 favorable and 3 unfavorable beings. Positive karma, rebirth, includes being reborn as a demigod, a realm of gods, or a realm of men. Being reborn as a man is the highest, most favorable way of being reborn. Negative karma, rebirth, includes being born into the realms of animals, ghosts, and into hell. The only being that is able to experience nirvana is man. This is why being reborn in the realm of men is the most favorable outcome of birth. Men, compared to animals and ghosts, have a second chance at happiness, enlightenment, and an understanding of one's mind and universe.
Some random facts of Buddhism are there are 360 million followers of Buddhism worldwide, making it the 4th largest religion in the world. The Dalai Lama is the leading monk in the Tibetan Buddhism. The term Buddhism was coined by Western scholars in the 1830s. Buddhists don't actually refer to the religion as Buddhism. And the last fact is the founder Siddhartha left everything behind to pursue the path of truth when he saw the poverty and sickness beyond his palace walls. This then led him to drop his birth name Siddhartha Gautama, and he later changed it to Shakyamuni.
In conclusion, Buddhism is a tradition and a way of life that originated in the 3rd century BCE. Buddhism was founded by the Hindu prince Siddhartha. Buddhism is actually thought to be more of a philosophy than a religion, and the ultimate goal of Buddhism is to achieve nirvana and live in a state of pure happiness. Following the 4 Noble Truths in the Eightfold Path, participating in meditation can lead to enlightenment.